Hey folks, Mark back with another vinyl update. You know, I've been buying a few records over the last few months, playing catch up. The video I made a few days ago, it was 28 minutes, and I still didn't really show a lot of the stuff that I picked up. So I'm gonna show a few more things. Hope you're all doing well. I head to Dallas in a week. Just occurred to me, I head there in a week. Christmas is a week away. So I did all my shopping today, all done with that. Heading to Dallas in a week, and I'm going to see some old friends and family, stay there for a week, and hit a few record stores while I'm down there. Looking forward to going to Josie Records down there. That's a really big store that's opened up in recent years, and we'll see what else happens down there. So anyway, I'm sure I'll pick up a few things to show there. Hope you're all doing well. Don't stress out. Holidays are going to happen whether you want them to or not, and you know, let's just kind of slide through it. And music always helps, doesn't it? So here we go. These are some things that I picked up kind of online or kind of as one-offs in shops or in dollar bins. So let's show you what we got here. And I'm going to, hopefully this one won't be as long as the one I made a few days ago. All right, this one I got online. It's Even As We Speak, an Australian band, kind of jangly pop, indie pop. They put out a string of records in the early 90s for the Sarah record label, and they're really, really good. I like them a lot. And this is a brand new 5-track 10-inch that they put out on the Emotional Response label. It's called The Black Forest. And let me get something here to put these records up against. Sorry about this. There we go. All right. I don't want these records all piling up horizontal on the floor. And Embrace, English mid-80s group. And this is a 12-inch called A Room Upstairs. Another, I think it's a 5-tracker. And, you know, it's good. They were kind of a light, airy, synthy sort of band. Some really good singles by them are The Living Daylights, Shouting in Cafes, and also This Brilliant Evening, if you want to get a sense of what they're all about. They were on the Cherry Red label for a while, and this release came out on the Glass label. One of the members of this group, Richard Formby, later went on to be a notable producer for a lot of indie groups, including the Telescopes in the late 1980s. And then he formed, he joined Spectrum, Sonic Boom from Spaceman 3, his post-Spaceman 3 band, Sonic Boom, or Spectrum. He joined that band as well. This one from the Bridewell Taxis, a Leeds-based band, but definitely had the Manchester sound from the turn of the 90s, early 90s. And sort of like in Spiral Carpets or Happy Mondays, Charlatans. Here they are covering Don't Fear the Reaper, the Blue Oyster Cult song. And while I like it, it's good version, you know, I still prefer the Blue Oyster Cult original. If you want to get a sense of what Bridewell Taxis are all about, check out a song called Spirit on YouTube. Rose of Avalanche, mid-80s indie group. This is a 12-inch called Too Many Castles in the Sky. Came out on the Fire label, same label that had Pulp and Blue Aeroplanes. And, you know, they're a decent group. They're not one of my favorites, but sort of on the fringes of the goth indie sound. A really good song in here called Assassin that I like a lot by them. Group from the UK, early 1990s. This is an EP from, I think, 91. It's called, but the group is called Fury Things. At first I thought it was Furry Things. That's a 90s indie group. But this is a different band called Fury Things. It's the Lovesick EP. Came out on the Cherie label. Fantastic label. And very kind of psychedelic, fuzzy indie rock. I liked it. And then I went to a record fair here in Cleveland not long ago. Well, maybe last September. And it's a really good little flea market, but they concentrate mostly on records. And you never know what you're going to run into there. And I found a guy selling records dirt cheap that I was just like, wow. You know, some of the stuff, they were like imports and things that I just don't ever see around. So he also had a lot of wax tracks type stuff. So I picked up a few things, including this Controlled Bleeding EP. I think I said in the last video how I've been kind of trying to gather their stuff up and get more into them. An EP called Songs from the Grinding Wall. Just dark, dance-driven electronic music. If you like wax tracks, you know exactly what that's going to be about. One of the very few Front 242 records I never had. This one called No Comment. And this came out, I think, originally in '84, but this is a reissue from like '87. And I think the only difference is it's not a gatefold. But it's a good 6-track album. And if you like Front 242, then you already probably have this or know about it. But it became kind of hard to find over the last 20 years. You don't see this around too much anymore. So thought I'd grab that. And then Frontline Assembly, a 12-inch by them called Isolate. Isolate with I-C-E. And again, dark, dance-driven electronic music. Very good. I'm a big fan of theirs. And then this album by Test Department was like $1, sealed. And Test Department are one of the original industrial groups from the early 1980s in Britain, along with Throbbing Gristle and Einstürzende Neubauten, who are actually German. But they were one of the originators of industrial music, actually playing on lead pipes and trash cans and whatever they could find. I mean, definitely found sound. And this album kind of it still sees them entrenched in that, although it's definitely you know, an atmospheric kind of cinematic record. It's called Sub Rosa by Test Department. This came out, I think, in the mid-1980s. Kitchens of Distinction, late 80s, early 90s shoegazy type indie band who I was a huge fan of. Well, they broke up around 95 and got back together in 2013 and put out this album called Folly. And it's pretty good. I've only given it a couple spins, but there's a couple songs I like on here. His voice has gotten a little raspier, a little rougher, but yeah, definitely I need to get a little used to it. The bar was set pretty high with their early 90s releases. So Kitchens of Distinction, Folly. A couple of Cleveland bands I found really cheap. The Tellers. This is kind of a garagey, kind of, I don't want to say a punk band with a punk attitude, but very garagey and rough, but highly melodic and tuneful as well. The Tellers, found that for $1. And then Ceilings Below, hard album to describe, a Cleveland group, kind of a new wavy type thing from the mid-80s, light synthesizers, bass, some light guitar. I don't know, I thought it was pretty decent. They were definitely trying to do kind of maybe a Factory Records kind of thing in the mid-1980s. Ceilings Below out of Cleveland. And then I said in the last video how I've been buying Isaac Hayes records whenever I see them, and this one's no exception. Chocolate Chip. Found that for a good price. Good laid-back vibe from Isaac Hayes. This came out in 1975. Put this back in its sleeve if you don't mind. Romeo Void. I love Romeo Void, and I never did have their first album. This is the first one. It's a Condition. This came out, I think, in '81. Oh, and I'm showing it sideways. Ah, here we go. Let me show it to you right side up. It's a Condition. This came out on the San Francisco label 415, and I showed a compilation of stuff on that label in the last video. So good dark new wave, guitar-driven new wave with a lot of sax in it. If you like Psychedelic Furs early stuff, you might like them. They had a big hit with Never Say Never in 1982 off their next release. Here's a group that one of my viewers had told me to get. A guy named Jess Manuel had said pick up some Band of Holy Joy. Well, I found an album for $1 by them. This one's called Positively Spooked, and I did like it. Very, had almost kind of a Celtic vibe to it, but guitar-based indie pop from the late 1980s. This came out in 1990 on Rough Trade. Band of Holy Joy. I like them. Here's another group I've had singles by, but never did have this album. Diesel Park West. It's called Shakespeare, Alabama. And this thing, boy, this band used to get written up in the UK music press in the late 1980s. They were like the darlings there for a while. Them and Goodbye Mr. Mackenzie. It seemed to be around the same time. This album actually came out in America on the MI label, and good. I had the single Jackie's Still Sad, which I've always liked, but this album's got plenty of great songs on it. One in particular called Here I Stand. If you want to know what they're all about, check out that song if it's on YouTube. Diesel Park West, Shakespeare, Alabama, anthematic guitar rock. Probably the best way to describe them. Probably really good live. That's probably why they got written up so much. Here's something else a viewer had commented on one of my past videos. Rebel and Remasters had told me I bought a compilation with this band Fay Ray on it, and he had told me to pick up something by Fay Ray if I ever came across it, and I did. Came across this album, Contact You, Came out in 1982 on Elektra. And they're a UK-based new wave, guitar-based new wave band. Remind me a lot of the Motels. Early Motels is probably kind of a apt description by them. Fay Ray. I liked them. Picking up old Strangler 70s albums little by little. I've had their 80s albums forever, but for some reason never really bought their 70s records. I used to see them around all the time, and there was always a next time. You know, next time I'll get Black and White, which is what this album is. Well, as the years have gone by, those next times kind of stopped coming. You don't see Stranglers albums like I used to in the stores anymore. And so, wanted to get an A&M copy on marble vinyl of this, but, you know, it isn't that big a deal. So I found a Canadian copy on United Artists. Black and White. This is the Stranglers. Fantastic record. If you are not familiar with this, it's different from their their 80s kind of smoother sound. This is a little bit of a rougher sound for them, but if you want to get a gist of what this is like, go YouTube the song In the Shadows. Love it. All right. Found this real cheap for like $5 at that same record fair I was talking about. Independent Top 20 feature. And if you want to know what I was listening to in 1992, like what was I into after Manchester kind of happened, before Britpop, this stuff. See, I'll give you a rundown of the groups that are on it. This is kind of this label called Beachwood over in the UK used to put these little collections out of what was big on the indie charts. So they were almost like, excuse me as my camera falls over. They were almost like Clientele's for the indie era. You know, they just kind of gathered the hits of the day, the indie hits of the day. So on here, give you a list: Curve, The Boo Radleys, Pale Saints, Adorable, Suede, Verve, The Breeders, Kingmaker, Revolver, Spectrum, who I was talking about earlier, Levitation, Captain America, who turned into Eugenius later, Midway Still, The Family Cat, Wonky Alice. Very cool band. I've been wanting to get stuff by. They're on here. Wolfgang Press, Moonshake, Spitfire, Daisy Chainsaw, and Sultans of Ping FC. Wow, what a stellar collection. A lot of the stuff on here I already had. I'd bought the singles when they came out. But there was stuff on here I didn't have, like the Daisy Chainsaw and the Wonky Alice and Midway Still. I didn't have those tracks. So for $5, and a lot of the stuff, you know, because it was 92, I had a lot of the stuff on CD single. You know, or CD. So it's nice to have some of these tracks on vinyl, especially like that early Verve. Cold Cut, fun cut-up dance sample act from the late 1980s and into the 90s. This is a 12-inch they did in, I think, 89. Cold Cut's Christmas Break. It was $1. And it's kind of like a dance beat with like some Christmas samples thrown in. It's not anything that fantastic, but it's fun. And it's Christmas, you know. Found this real cheap. Baby, You're Just You, an old Pastels 12-inch. This came out, I think, on... yeah, Chapter 22. I was going to say Glass. They've been on a lot of different labels. But this came out around 89, I think. Let's look and see. Now I got to know. 89. And I love the Pastels. And they were kind of group... jangly indie group, kind of, but with a Velvet Underground kind of feel to them. And sometimes a rockabilly kind of feel to them at times. But, you know, they were very prolific in the 1980s, and I didn't buy everything they put out. I just bought stuff sparingly. But I remember, you know, when this came out, and you know, there was just other stuff to buy. So now I'm kind of going back and trying to buy the stuff I never did pick up by the Pastels, and was glad to come across this one. UK band, the Sidleys, got this one online. Fantastic group. Now, this is a collection of demos that they had done before. They only released 2 singles and a split single in their lifetime. That's all they did. Okay? So it wasn't like they had a whole lot out. But there is a compilation that came out in 2001, I think, around there, called Slum Clearance. Fantastic. If you see that around, get it. Think the Smiths, but with a female singer. Very much, I mean, akin to the Smiths musically. That jangly kind of English indie sound, but with a female singer with great lyrics. Her name is Johnny. Well, their stuff has become highly collectible. Those 2 singles and split 7-inch I was telling you about, don't even bother. They're off, the prices are off the chain. So if you can find Slum Clearance, get that. This is demos before all of that, from 85 to 87. So a lot of it's just kind of like bedroom guitars, recorded on a, you know, TAC 4-track tape recorder, and it's got like a drum machine behind it. So the versions of here really aren't that great, but it's a nice curiosity to have. And again, I can't recommend, if you like mid-80s jangly indie alternative guitar pop, the Sidleys. Wow. If you really want to know what they're about, Google the song My Favorite Wet Wednesday Afternoon. You will be floored. This one I grabbed, it was $1, 2 in a room, and it's called Take Me Away. This is on the Cutting label. Great Florida, Miami freestyle kind of dance, break dance kind of pop. I love this kind of stuff. And 2 in a Room actually had a hit in the U.S. They had a chart hit called Wiggle It. And wiggle it just a little bit. Kind of got played on the radio a lot, and I thought the song was kind of stupid, but I loved the music. I thought the rhythms were fantastic. And yeah, this is a good one. Take Me Away. All right, a few more here. I'm going to stop this thing. We're at 16 minutes. I'm going to stop this thing at 20 minutes. So however far I get, however far I get. May have to do another video. Level 42, huge fan of them. This is an upgrade. I already had this 12-inch, but it was warped. So I found a good, inexpensive copy of this online and picked it up. Out of sight, out of mind. This comes from their, let me think, 3rd album, Standing in the Light. It came from that, which was actually the first album I ever bought by them. But this is an extended version, and there's a long version of You Can't Blame Lewis on the back, which comes from their 2nd album, The Pursuit of Accidents. Level 42 are so much more than Something About You. So if that's all you know by them, and you like your music, your kind of dance music with a little bit of jazz going on, check them out. Level 42. Section 25, here's one I never had by them, a Manchester band on the Factory label. This is one called The Beast. Came out in 1982 on Factory. This catches them as they were leaving their post-punk guitar sound and moving more toward a synthesized dance direction. A lot like kind of where New Order were in 1982. This is kind of, they were always kind of slightly behind New Order as far as the progression went from, you know, kind of that dark post-punk sound moving more toward a dance sound. Love the Clientele, UK band, very kind of mellow and wistful and soft. If you like your indie that way, with kind of a C86 vibe to it, check out the Clientele. They've been going for a long time, and they hadn't put anything out for a while. So this is an album called Music for the Age of Miracles. And I'm quite impressed with it. It's out on Merge, came out this year. And in particular, the song I like from this, Everyone You Meet. If you're interested in what they're all about, check out Everyone You Meet. David Crosby, this one's called If I Could Only Remember My Name. I keep hearing how great this record is. I read all kinds of great reviews of it. And I love the Byrds and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I do like them. And, you know, I like Neil Young. And you know, so really, now that I think about it, David Crosby hasn't done that many solo records. So, and this is like a cast of characters on this. I mean, on this album, you get, who's on here? Graham Nash, Neil Young, Phil Lesh, Mickey Hart. I'm looking to see Michael Shreve. Seeing who else I recognize on here. David Geffen, well, he's credited on here. Joni Mitchell makes an appearance. Greg Raleigh of Santana and Journey. Grace Slick. Jorma Kaukonen. I can never remember how to say his name. He's from Jefferson Airplane. So, I mean, clearly, you know, as you know, David Crosby is connected, and he got everybody to play on this record. Good, mellow, laid-back California rock. It's the best way to describe it. And then a couple of 12 inches found in the Goodwill for $1 each of Italo Disco from Silent Circle. Just mid-80s synth pop. Think Erasure, and you're in the ballpark. This one called Stop the Rain, and this other one called Hide Away. Silent Circle. I love mid-80s dance 12-inch singles, so I'm an easy sell on this stuff. Couple more we'll race through. Found for $1, a decent copy of Presence by Led Zeppelin. Another band, you know, that, you know, as I see their records for a decent price, I'll pick them up. You know, it's not in the best shape ever, but it's certainly playable. I gave it a good clean. And then Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Oh my gosh. The only thing, I got this for like $1, and the reason I got it for $1 was it didn't come with inner sleeves. So I just put some inner sleeves on them, and the records are fine. They're totally playable. So, but it doesn't have the inserts or all the stuff it came with. But for $1, I'm not complaining. you know. The Slits Cut, I think I showed their second album in the last video. Well, this is their first. I never bought it. Stupid me, never bought it all during the 80s when I was seeing originals everywhere. I passed it by, and then I got a digital copy of it about maybe 15 years ago or something. And wow, I was so floored. I'm like, why didn't I ever buy this record? Of course, the prices went. So I found a decent priced reissue of this on purple vinyl and the original Island Records label. Cut, I can't tell you how great this record is. You probably already know if you're into post-punk, you know. Slits were formed in the late 70s, rare, ramshackle, and very confrontational all the way through their career pretty much, but in different ways. But in more of a loud guitar, snarly way early on. And then by the time they got to their first album, 79, Cut, they were in their own league, doing kind of reggae-tinged, off-kilter rock music. Hard to describe. So there you go. Pick up Cut. If you're curious to what they're all about, look up Instant Hit or Typical Girls on YouTube. The Slits. Yeah. Mantronix, huge fan of them in the 80s. Curtis Mantronix, great just dance record producer. Did a lot of hip-hop styled rap records in the late 80s. And by the time he got around to this one, which came out in 91, he'd pretty much gone full-on dance house. So this one's called Step to Me, Do Me. Decent, you know, kind of decent pop. And then I'm just going to show you a couple more. We're already 21 minutes. Bananarama, an album I never had by them. True Confessions, found it for $1. Love Bananarama. Ian Gaume, don't really know a whole lot about him except he was on Stiff, and I have a single by him called Hold On, which isn't on this album. But this is one called What a Blow. Good, kind of late 70s guitar-based power pop. Speaking of guitar-based power pop, the Reubens, a band I'd never had any albums by, but I have a single called Gorilla by them, which I love. They were on the Muskirkley label, very known for their power pop releases. I think maybe Jonathan Richman might have been on that label. Early releases by Greg Kihn. Were on that label. And the Reubens are really good. Just, again, tuneful, melodic, guitar-based power pop. If you like the Shoes or even Elvis Costello, check them out. The Kane Gang, blue-eyed soul band from the mid-1980s from the UK. They had a hit over here with Motortown and also Don't Look Any Further. This is the album both of those songs came from, called Miracle. Slick, late 80s. It's not for everyone, but if you like slick, late 80s soulful pop, the Kane Gang. Red Guitars, good UK indie band, guitar-based group. This is one of their earliest releases on their own self-drive record label, and this is called Good Technology. Good kind of a post-punk sound to them, but post-punk meets C86, kind of right in between there. Their golden era was like around 1984 when they were on their own label. They signed to Virgin about a year later and put out an album on that label, which was good, but not as good as their early stuff. Lastly, A Certain Ratio, one of the few albums I'd never had by them, called Force. Finally found a decent copy of this, and great funk, post-punk funk, dance kind of stuff. Love it. If you want to know what they're all about, check out Bootsy, or what else is that? Fever 103, 103 Degrees. Great, great tracks. All right, so that's it. We're at 23 minutes. I'm going to cut this thing short before it goes any longer. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you all have a great holiday. I'll see you on the other side of it, and I'll bring you another video and show you some more things that I picked up. All right, talk to you soon. Have fun. Keep spinning records.